Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, we are about to live in a world where the greatest game of all time is an Apple Arcade exclusive. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with ya. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as I am always joined, by my co-host Mark Mitchell. We've got a good show for you today. We're going to be talking about the news from the week, including the Awesome Games Done Quick speedrunning fundraiser, and then also the Pocket Card Jockey finding a new home. And then on Thursday, we are looking ahead to Nintendo's 2023. But Mark, in the meantime, how's it going?
It's going great. So happy to be back. So happy to be here with you.
Happy to have you back. Happy to be doing this again. Connor, thank you for coming in last
Yes, absolutely.
week. But it's other than that, we've been off of this for it feels like it's been a long time.
Yeah, it's always a little strange when we have these, breaks because we do the show. So I get to see you so often, normally. And so
then 2 weeks go by where we don't see each other, and it's like, what?
it's strange. And so it's always a little exciting. I always wonder how that energy affects the show. Like if it gets too crazy or I'm talking too fast, but just happy to be here.
I'm always worried that you're going to be like, oh, I forgot that Patrick's weird. I don't like spending time with him.
Can you imagine?
At this point, if we forgot that we were weird. All right, Mark, speaking of things that are weird, speaking of things that we're afraid might be different when we return to them, the Sonic Forces borrowing program is coming to a close.
That's right. All good things must come to an end.
And that includes perfect things.
So too must the Sonic Forces borrowing program.
So here's what we're doing. Both Sonic Forces and Untitled Goose Game are back in my possession in my home at this moment. Mark, I do not want them in my home. That's part of the reason why I was so happy to mail them out and get them sent back to me over and over and over again. We are going to send them out one last time, and this time there will be no return addressed, postage provided for you envelope. You just have to keep this thing.
Yep.
So get your name on the list if you have not already entered your name to get my copy of Sonic Forces or Untitled Goose Game. You have until the end of this month, January 31st. Email us. Let us know. Email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society
at gmail.com.
We will need another reason to say our email address every episode, though, because I'm not letting that go. Email us by the end of the month. We will randomly select 2 people to get these copies for the final times, and then we'll be done with the Sonic Forces borrowing program.
That's right. And so just to be super clear, if you have ever put your name on the list, you are entered into this drawing. So you don't need to re-enter, but this is your last chance to get on that list. So if you have not done so, now is the time.
Now is the time.
Precious few days.
Yes. And then it'll be over, and Sonic Forces will be out in the world. You can conduct your own Sonic Forces borrowing program if you like.
That's right. I mean, it will remain, as always, the perfect program.
100%. All right, Mark, let's get into what we've been playing this week, or in your case, for the last 3 weeks. Mark, I continue mostly to be playing, 2 things. One is that I am daily working on my goal of getting 999 tickets in Tetris 99.
When I came in today, you were working on getting your tickets for the day.
And I'm not going to say that I'm becoming discouraged there, because I can only get 4 tickets a day. And the goal at this point is still to collect another 500 tickets. But I'm becoming a little bit discouraged by it just because it takes so long.
Right. Yeah.
And the progress is so slow. And since I decided to do this, I have not missed a day. But sometimes it means I gotta wake up early and play Tetris 99 before going to war. Like, I don't
Ooh,
know.
it's such a dangerous line because you love Tetris 99 so much and you don't want it
Yes.
to become a chore.
Right. But I want these tickets. But mostly I've been playing Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion, which I have decided now that I love. I was having a fun time with it before. I have now decided I love the game. It reminds me that I love Final Fantasy VII.
This makes me very happy.
Like the world of Final Fantasy VII. There are a couple things that Crisis Core does that feel extraordinary to me. And one is that it does this great job of depicting the Shinra Corporation, which is like the evil company that runs the world in Final Fantasy VII. Does a really great job of depicting them as both like oppressor of the common man and like something to aspire to. So like there are people who live in the slums who are like, someday I'm going to get a job and be an exec working for the Shinra Corporation. I met a kid who was like going on about like the trains and how it's like the most high tech like train that Shinra's ever put out. And it's just like these like little, and of course he lives in the slums too and is like, you know, under Shinra's boot all the time. And it's just this really like smart, subtle thing of like the thing that looks really cool is all and like is fun to think about and like fantasize about being a part of is also like the oppressive force that's keeping you down.
Man, yeah.
It's just it's very cool. And I'm also I'm in chapter 7 right now, 7 of 10. So Zach, the protagonist, has met a young Cloud at this point. He's also met Aerith, and like he's building these relationships with these characters. And like I know Cloud so well because I've been playing Final Fantasy VII since, you know, I was 16. And just knowing that like this dude was Cloud's friend and Cloud is such like a grump, and Zach is such an Andy Dwyer from Parks and Recreation, right? He's just like he's just a fun dude. It's just it's a great dynamic, and I love thinking of the way he shaped all of these characters from Final Fantasy VII before we even meet them.
That's fun. I'm so glad that, I mean, I haven't played the game, but just how much you love Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
That there's this like new to you piece
Yeah.
of Final Fantasy
It's 15
VII.
years
Yeah.
old, generally speaking, but yes, new to me.
Yeah, that sounds like so much fun, and also just like the game sounds enjoyable.
Yeah.
So I think eventually I'll want to pick it up. I've like wish listed it, you know, on my Switch, so I can see if it ever drops in price.
I would totally recommend it. There's one more like feature of it that I wanted to shout out, which may just it speaks to my like specifically the way I want to engage with games. So normally when you're playing the game, it's like this chapter based thing where it's combat and story and like a little bit of exploration, but the story is sort of like constantly happening, right? Like every like 5 or 10 minutes, someone is talking to someone else about something, right? And it's all fully voice acted cutscenes. I was playing in Japanese. I switched it over to English because I was like, I want to hear this, and it is good.
How did you play Final Fantasy VII Remake? Because that's the same voice actors, right?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yes, it is. But Zack doesn't exist in Remake, so like the protagonist is someone new. But so in any event, I like that style of gameplay, but it means that it's like it's fully it fully has my attention, right? Like I can't do that and watch a TV show at the same time. I can't really do that and like be hanging out with Sarah while she's like reading or whatever. I can't do that and like listen to a podcast at the same time. But there are these like menu-based missions that like you just go in and select them, and those are just straight combat. And like super light exploration, but zero story. So like I know when I sit down and I'm like, okay, I'm going to spend like an hour just doing missions, I can listen to a podcast during that. And then when I want to just like commit myself to just playing the game, turn off the podcast, go into the story mode, and it's just like I know what kind of gameplay I'm engaging with before I start doing it. which is just so like I want every story-based game to be like, okay, now if you want to, here's like just a bunch of challenges,
right? Yeah,
that like no one's gonna talk to you for a while. You don't have to like pause what you're doing to like watch a cutscene. It feels very considerate.
yeah, that's great. That sounds. I mean, this game, previous to it being remade for modern platforms, like when it was on the PSP, like just was not really on my radar at all. Like I knew it existed,
Yeah, me
but
too.
like I wasn't. And I don't think I have or I know for sure I don't have the same like affinity for Final Fantasy VII that you do. I like it, but so it's like, oh, when Sony was making all of these, or Square Enix, they had Crisis Core and Dirge of Cerberus, and like all of those like never really mattered to me. But I don't know. There's something about your experience with Crisis Core and just kind of like the game almost being reevaluated now 15 years later that it makes me excited to experience it someday.
Yep, and when it'll be exactly the Dragon Quest XI S Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition journey that we go on, where I'm like, tell me exactly where you are.
Well, I played a couple of things while I was away, so I continued to put some time into Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair. After my initial impressions of it a few weeks ago, listener AV, who's in our Discord, commented saying that basically they had like a very similar experience to my initial impressions, which were like, oh, it's like interesting, but the movement, takes a little bit of getting used to, because it's really like momentum based, and like, the character designs are like gross.
They are what they are.
They are what they are. But their experience was like, yes, that is true, but if you keep pushing through, like it kind of reveals itself to do some really interesting things. And I have found that to be like exactly my experience as well. I will say one downside is the soundtrack is composed by like a lot of composers who have worked on other things like Tropical Freeze, which is a soundtrack that I love, but I wasn't really able to play with the music. I was, and so I haven't been able to experience that part of it. I will say, but like the other elements of the game, I at least academically appreciate. Like it does really cool things where, the overworld does have like puzzle elements, and you like explore it, and levels have like two versions depending on, sometimes you like there's a big pot, like anthropomorphic pot of sweets, and when you run into it, it spills onto the level.
I just a pot of sweets.
That's like what I think his name is like Sweetie or something like that.
I mean, I can totally buy that. That's the best way to describe it, but like a pot of sweets. Is it like a goo, or is it?
It's like a goo, because when you run into it, it like basically knocks this like viscous liquid onto the level, and then when you go into the level, it now is like covered in honey, sticky, essentially. So you can like climb up walls you couldn't before. It's a honey pot. So it's like, so it does cool things like that. I for whatever reason, it just is not like fully grabbing me. Like it was perfect, like on a plane to like do a couple of levels. But I just don't think that I'm going to continue playing it. I mechanically, I think like there is nothing wrong with it, and I can like academically appreciate a lot of the things it's doing, but it's just not like grabbing me for whatever reason. It just doesn't, like, I just don't connect with it.
Let it go. I mean, your game time is limited enough that you shouldn't have to settle for something that you appreciate academically, right?
Right.
Play a game you want to play. Play a game that's fun.
Speaking of which, I finally was able to participate in the Tricolor Turf War in Splatoon 3 in this most recent Splatfest.
Representing team...
I did end up doing Team Spicy, and I couldn't remember if that's what I pledged my allegiance to previously when we talked about it.
I don't remember.
But yeah, I did Team Spicy. And, now I was traveling for a lot of it, and then but I got home, and so on Sunday morning, I was like, okay, I'm going to play some Splatfest, because this is the first opportunity, I think it's the first Splatfest since Nintendo made the update that you can select a Tricolor Turf War and you are guaranteed to get it. Because previous Splatfest, I had tried to play Tricolor Turf War, but I could never actually happened for me, because I don't know why that was a thing, but that's something they changed over like from the launch of the game to now.
One of the things they love with Splatoon is like controlling your experience in like an artificial
in like
way.
opaque ways.
Yeah, where it's like, no, you don't get this. I don't know why.
Yeah, like no, you can't. You're selecting, tricolor turf war, but we're just putting you in regular turf wars,
right?
And you'll never understand why. But they don't do that anymore,
right?
So this is my first time experiencing it. So because I was on Team Spicy, I was like an attacker, and because I think it was Team Sweet that was like the defender in the middle of the map. But I've got to say, for me personally, I thought tricolor was a ton of fun.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And maybe it's different if you're a defender, but I thought like having the two-person teams trying to take control of the area
in the middle
was just like a really fun formula. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was a fun kind of like change to just regular turf war. I don't really know what the general consensus on tricolor turf wars are. Do people like it?
It's tough because like I think like you say, this is the first one where people could like reliably opt into it. So there may not be like a big enough sample size. I know that our Discord is full of people who are very much into Splatoon 3 and who participated in the Splatfest. So I would love to hear more conversation or read more conversation about it there in the Discord, so we can bring that to the podcast.
And then finally, Patrick, I did end up buying a Switch OLED model.
Is it okay for me to say that I'm a little bit hurt that you didn't tell me ahead of time? Because you and I got our Switches on the same day at the same time.
Yep.
Which, we got them launch day, so like that's not that remarkable. But like within minutes of each other, we stood in the same line.
Yes.
So we were on the same journey with the same creaky old Switches, and now I've been left behind, Mark.
I couldn't. It really was going on this trip was the tipping point because there's like my battery was so bad, and so I ended up getting an OLED model. The other thing that was kind of for me, the reason that I pulled the trigger was actually the leak, potentially, we actually don't know, of that Tears of the Kingdom Switch
Which
OLED
Connor
model.
and I talked about last week.
Exactly, yeah. And so I think there's a good chance that it's, it ends up being real. And so that made me be like, okay, my current Switch is getting pretty old. I don't want to my Switch experience to be what my Nintendo 3DS experience is, where I never bought a new 3DS and now I'm really regretting it. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get an OLED model because I now do not believe that we're getting like a Switch, like a new Switch this year. I do think that it is possible.
So sorry, I forget where exactly all of our outlandish predictions are or were. Were you new Switch in 2023?
Yeah,
okay.
And I don't know that it was necessarily with the Tears of the Kingdom, but I was like, yeah, it's kind of getting long in the tooth. Like I think it makes sense, but I don't think we're getting like a next generation from Nintendo anymore.
Right.
But I still think it's possible that we do get a revision of some kind because historically Nintendo has been on like this like 2-year revision, and not just with the Switch, although that did happen. You had the original Switch in 2017,
and then the Lite.
And not just the Lite, but also like the the kind of like it looked like a Switch, it worked like a Switch, but they like updated the chip,
so like a duck.
So it had like better battery life, and then but the Lite is another great example. Then 2 years later you had the OLED. It's like, okay, well that was 2021, so I think it is potentially possible that we get like another upgrade in 2023, but I just didn't want to wait anymore.
Yeah. I get that. I mean, it's my like trolley prediction a couple years ago of not till 2025 starting to feel
I know. I think it is super possible that it's like on the cusp of 2025, like late 2024 is when we get new hardware. But one thing that's interesting is that with the OLED, it is like the build is nicer. Like it feels like sturdier, like not as creaky. But it is interesting that you're like, oh, it's still a Switch. Like the eShop is still slow. You know what I mean? Like it's not like the experience from going from a 3DS and then like the new 3DS where you're like, oh, this is significantly snappier.
Yeah.
And like it has like the new 3DS had the like nub and all like that like all those niceties. Like the OLED is nice, like the screen is nice, but it also does that weird 3DS XL thing where I think it's the same number of pixels, it's just a bigger screen, so you're like, oh, it actually looks a little more like pixelated.
Yeah, sure.
So it's just it's an interesting balance. Like I'm glad I got it, but it's definitely not like a life-changing upgrade in any way.
Joy-Cons.
I went with the white.
Cool.
I went with white. And is Joy-Con drift still a thing? Like,
yeah,
because okay, yeah.
I mean, I think we it was sort of reported that like the newer ones are less susceptible to it, but also I don't know. I feel like Joy-Con drift is a subject that we are mostly past as a society now. That like it still happens, and we're like, I don't know. That's just part of it.
Oh, sure. It's like when like a war just continues for years and years. That you know what I mean? Where you're just like,
yeah.
It stops being front page news because it's just like a thing that you are living with.
Sure. Now. I mean, that's an insane comparison, but yeah.
Yet I stand behind it.
It's good. It's good. I like it.
And so I know all this OLED stuff is like 2 years old at this point, but I will say, but it's new to me. And I will say the other thing that I had to kind of figure out is like how to set up my OLED, like transfer all of my information over. And that part is fairly easy, but the thing that kind of makes it Nintendo-esque is that in order to transfer your information over from like an old Switch to your new Switch, you can't already have that account linked to your new Switch. So you go through, you like turn on the OLED, or really any new Switch, you're setting it up, and you have to add a user. So you're like, oh, obviously I'll just like sign in with my Nintendo account.
Right.
So you sign in with your Nintendo account, and then you go to transfer your information from the old Switch to the new Switch, and it's like, you can't do that because you're already signed in with this account. So what you have to do is you have to make just like a throwaway,
like just a
user,
dummy. Okay,
just like a throwaway user, and then transfer over your like Nintendo account, and then get rid of the dummy user. It's just like it adds a layer of complication that you're like, this is silly.
Well, right, that there should be an option like right when you start it up where it's like, do you currently have a Switch whose soul you want to put into this Switch?
Right.
And it's weird that is not, especially like this late in the generation, and this like it's so clearly that they're trying to sell Switches to people who've already purchased them before.
Right.
That like, why isn't that part of it? And I guess you're right. It's just like a Nintendo thing.
Yeah. And hopefully, with the whatever the next Nintendo hardware is, that's another thing that they'll fix, because all baby steps. But
yeah. Well, and like I found it to be pretty easy to, and mind you, this is 100 years ago now, so who can remember? But it was easy to move my Wii profile over to my Wii U, and even had like a cute little animation of like Pikmin carrying the data over. But like, yeah, I remember that being like quick and easy, and like it knew that like if you bought a Wii U, you previously owned a Wii, which like it's kind of a good assumption that like if you are buying any video game, you previously owned a Wii. But yeah, so yeah, I guess just what I'm saying is I would hope that in whatever Nintendo does next, that they are cognizant of the fact that like everyone buying it had a Switch at one point.
Right. Or like a Nintendo, or like the assumption should be or could be that you have an account that you're transferring over. And if you don't, that's fine.
Right.
But let's work off the other thing that's like a little bit of a bummer is that I don't delete I'll delete demos, but like I don't delete software off my Switch. I'll archive it, but I like having like all of the like cover art, And so when you transfer all of your stuff over, you don't get that. Because
but you have to just download them one at a time?
You would have to download them one by one
and archive them.
Right. And so it's like, I'm not going to do that. I went into the eShop and I downloaded maybe like 4 games, but my Switch feels so empty, whereas before it was like, oh yeah, I have like a catalog of like 100 and something games that I've over the entire Switch, and I can see the last time I played it and like all that kind of stuff. So that's like, I understand why it is that way, but it makes makes the experience less fun because it really feels like I'm like starting over in some ways.
Yeah, but like counterpoint, like maybe it'd be nice to not see Snake Pass and Fear Effects Sedna on my Switch. I suppose I could just delete them.
You could just
I
delete
could take that
it.
on
That's the
myself to
thing.
delete them. Yeah, you're right. I could take a little ownership here. A little personal responsibility.
Hey, we did an entire episode on Snake Pass.
We didn't. We've come such a long way, but we did do an entire episode on Snake Pass. All right, Mark, that's what we've been playing this week. Let's get into the new releases and what we might be playing next week.
January 12th on Thursday. I want to call out this game because I don't really know anything about it. But when I when I got my new Switch, I went to the eShop to just kind of test things out, see how everything was working, make sure I could re-download all my old software and stuff. And I'm going through the list of titles incoming soon. And there's one called Burrow of the Fallen Bear, a gay furry visual novel.
Now, it's funny to me that you would say that you don't know anything about it when you just read the name of it, because I think a gay furry visual novel tells you everything you need to know.
No,
about
that's
it.
true. It appears
yes.
that it is exactly what it says on the tin. But the reason it struck me was just like how different Nintendo has become as a company, right? From like the days of the NES when they were removing crosses from games in North America because they just like did not want to offend, to
now we got gay furries. Yeah,
that's just like it's like promoted on Nintendo, the eShop like coming soon page, and like nobody blinks. It's kind of cool. It's really nice.
It's I mean the whole thing has gotten has just gotten broader, right? Like and in some ways that means that there's like a lot of garbage that winds up on the eShop.
Totally.
And this may be more of that
absolutely,
garbage.
yeah.
Like who knows? But like gay furry garbage. So like okay, all right, whatever, great.
Yeah. Yeah, it just struck me as kind of like, oh, that's it's neat. I thought it was nice.
Sign of the times.
And then on Friday, January 13th, Sephiroth and Kazuma from the Super Smash Brothers series the amiibo are releasing.
So, okay. Do you recall a while ago that I was like, I don't even know if I have a Cloud amiibo?
Right.
And then a week or two ago, I started doing my amiibo inventory because I was like, I need to get a handle on this. I need to know what I own and what I don't own. I do own a Cloud. So I went ahead and pre-ordered Sephiroth.
Yeah, okay,
Because I mean, like,
no.
what am I doing?
You don't have to explain yourself to me.
I have to.
It makes a complete sense.
So I need it. Kazuma, I don't need him. But yeah, Sephiroth.
Was it hard to get Sephiroth?
It was hard in that I went to Amazon and it was like not available. I went to Best Buy and it said like coming soon. And then I went to GameStop and it said pre-order.
Oh, okay.
So no, like not hard. I didn't have to, and this was like I didn't check back. It was just like I had the impulse this morning, and just did it.
Yeah, Amiibo in the year of 2023 continues to be this like mysterious thing to me, where it's like people are obviously buying them,
right?
But it just doesn't seem like I don't know, like, because sometimes they're really hard to pre-order. Like, I feel like the Metroid Dread ones were like impossible to get.
Yeah, they were tough.
But then like Sephiroth, do you think that'd be a big deal? But it's like still available to pre-order. Like, I just don't know.
Yeah, well, and I think there's also just like less like pomp and circumstance around it because like he's the only Final Fantasy VII amiibo coming out. So like it's not like a big package deal of like this is Metroid Dread. This is the only time they'll be available. I have noticed, or like I do know that they are re-releasing, like reprinting a bunch of amiibo that are Fire Emblem related. So there, and I'm missing a bunch of them. But I don't have a handle on what the schedule is for the re-release. But I saw that you could pre-order the re-release of Marth, who is going to be available on the 20th. So like there is a schedule out there somewhere. I have Marth already, so that's not one that I needed to pick up. But so there are. Everyone keep an eye out for it. If you're interested in amiibo that you missed out on their original issue, they may be available again in the near future.
Interesting.
And I think a lot of that is just because Like the Fire Emblem games are always good about like scan any amiibo you want and get like a pointless item, but scan a Fire Emblem amiibo and like get something a little bit more meaningful.
Oh, okay.
That's sort of like an intelligent systems thing. I got to bring it up in almost every episode, but codename Steam, the 3DS like tactical game featuring characters from The Wizard of Oz and like American history, you could scan in the Fire Emblem amiibo to bring those characters into the game. So like you could play as Marth, as Roy, as Ike in this game.
That's amazing.
But you needed the amiibo to do it.
That's so interesting.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
But also very cool.
And then also on Switch is a game called NES Escape or Enscape or
Nescape.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean it's unclear exactly. But so NES Escape is like a puzzle bit, like an adventure, like a point and click sort of adventure game that was kickstarted a little while ago. It was developed and then they kickstarted the production of physical NES carts, and like sold it on NES and on PC a couple years ago, and it's coming to Switch, which is just a neat little like synergy of like a Nintendo thing, something like aping both like the style and originally coming out on original NES hardware, that now it's coming to Switch. So I thought it was just worth shouting out here. All right, Mark, those are the new releases. Let's close this out. Which brings us to a regular segment on our show. It is time for 433. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, wherein a performer or a group of performers didn't play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of this show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo. So, for the duration of one performance, 433, Mark and I'll talk about something not at all Nintendo related, thus fulfilling the contract of the piece. Mark, we're talking about the 10 longest running Broadway shows of all time.
Yes, that's right.
And Mark has the list. I do not. I'm electing to stay in the dark on this one. So you're going to administer whatever we're going to do with this list.
Yeah, okay, all right. So here's what we're going to do is I'm going to give you the number one longest running.
Cats.
And no, it's not Cats.
It's not Cats.
No, it used to be. And they certainly threatened it with the tagline now and forever. But no, it's not Cats. It's actually the Phantom of the Opera.
Oh.
Yeah, the longest running Broadway show by close to like 4,000 shows on number 2.
Wow.
And so what we're going to do is I'm going to throw to you and see if you can name some of the other shows in the top 10. It doesn't have to be in order. And then we'll just like kind of talk about
Cats.
each one. Yes, in fact, Cats is number 4 at this point.
Number 4?
Yeah, wildly.
Okay. So I believe we've talked about Phantom in a 433 previously when it stopped running, right?
Yeah, that's right. Or when they announced it was going to stop. I think like
it's still going.
I think it's still going.
And it was never going to stop.
And then they like extended it for a month.
Think of me fondly.
But I think it is actually going to close at some point and then come back. But yeah, Phantom of the Opera.
Cats number 4. I don't think I have anything to say about Cats.
I like Cats.
Oh, okay, tell me why. So here's Cats. I guess is like a spectacle I can respect. I don't like the songs in Cats.
Oh yeah, there are songs that I like in Cats. So when I was younger, I used to like dance. Like I used to do dance, and like my siblings did. Like it was something that we enjoyed a lot. And Cats is basically dance for 2.5 hours essentially with songs. There are some songs that I like in it, but yeah, I've always had like I don't think it's the best show of all time, but I've always had a soft spot for Cats.
I viewing it through the prism of like it's a dance piece that also has songs in it, like that actually makes a lot of sense. Like, and maybe I should just think of it more like a 20th century ballet than anything else.
Yeah, it's I think it's like I'm not gonna say that it's underrated or like the people that don't like
the
it.
Fourth longest running show. Of all
Yeah,
time.
like don't have like. But it's I've always enjoyed Cats, but I've also always enjoyed Phantom of the Opera. I mean, I'm a rube. What can I say?
Right. Well, yeah, but I mean, Phantom's also a slam dunk. Like it's just it goes down smooth, right? Goes down easy. Very little resistance. Path of least resistance. Phantom of the Opera. Lion King.
Lion King, yes, is number 3.
Okay, all right. So I still don't have number 2.
Don't have number 2. I think that, well, first of all, let's talk about Lion King.
Okay, great.
Another one where it's just like, it goes down smooth. The spectacle is amazing. Like, the puppetry is awesome. I think it is probably the best thing Julie Taymor has ever done.
Oh, yeah, I think hands down. Well, I mean, and it's also so impressive because both the stage show and the movie have such clear visual identities that are so different from each other and are both just iconically The Lion King.
Yeah.
It would be hard pressed to find like another property that only really exists in like 2 ways, and those 2 ways look and feel very different from each other, but are both recognizably the same thing.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point.
Yeah, and then it's the music from The Lion King. So
yeah.
like, it's awesome.
Amazing.
So I gotta guess number 2.
Uh-huh.
Why do you think I'm missing number 2?
I to be completely honest, like, I think number 2 is close to your heart, close to both of our minds at all times.
So it's Les Mis?
No, no. Although Les Mis is on there. That's number 6. Again, a show I love. My sister went with her kids to see it in someplace on the East Coast. It was like a touring production, and it was her kids' first time seeing it. And
You're in town?
And they absolutely loved it.
Hair?
And it made me want to like watch it. So the closest thing I could do was watch like the 20th anniversary or like whatever, like a concert special that they have that like Nick Jonas is in. And it's amazing. It reminded me how much I love Les Mis. It's so good.
Right, but it's not right.
It's not number 2. It's number 6.
It's number 6.
Yeah.
So what's number 2?
Chicago.
Chicago.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Really? Chicago's that long running?
Yeah.
Chicago's a great show. And wonderful movie.
Wonderful movie.
That movie's perfect.
Uh-huh.
So okay, we've got we're missing number 5.
We're missing number 5. It's another one that like I think I don't know that either of us care for it that much, but it's long running.
Is it another? Oh, shoot! We have to know this one, and then we.
It was Wicked.
It was Wicked.
Yeah.
No, I don't really care for Wicked, but it's coming out in the form of 2 movies.
2 movies.
It's insanity.
Too much.
We were accompanied today by an ensemble at the Musical Instrument Museum in Phoenix. We may need to revisit this topic because I was enjoying it so much. Mark, let's get into the news.
It's that time of year. It is time for Awesome Games Done Quick.
AGDQ.
The speedrunning marathon that is happening and started on Sunday and runs through Saturday the 14th. Raising money for the Prevent Cancer Foundation. If you have never watched parts of Games Done Quick before, they do 2 a year, 2 main events a year. They have programming throughout the entire year, but Awesome Games Done Quick, which happens like in January, and then Summer Games Done Quick that happens, I think, like in July or something like
Sometime
that.
in the summer.
Sometime in the summer, absolutely. And Awesome Games Done Quick raises money for the Prevent Cancer Foundation. In the summer, they raise money for Doctors Without Borders, and it like for an entire week, 24 hours a day, they different speedrunners are running different games. And so you can go to gamesdonequick.com to see the entire schedule. But for me, it's always a lot of fun. I love just having it on kind of like as background noise. Yep. And then later, they post all of the runs on YouTube after they're finished. And so, you can always go back and catch the ones that you missed. And
one of the things that's fun about the runs, and I think we say this every year or twice every year as the event comes by twice every year, that while speedrunning can be a sort of like impenetrable thing where it's like not even clear how they're doing what they're doing or what's impressive about what they're doing, everyone who does these things is not only very good at playing these games, but very good at explaining to you how they're playing the games or how they're doing what they're doing. In fact, there's frequently a person who's playing while another person on their team explains how what's happening in front of you is an impressive feat. So like it's kind of perfect, right? In that like you get to see these very like niche specialties play out, but then also feel like you're included in like knowing why it's cool.
Absolutely. And there's always, I feel like some like surprises in there. Like I remember a few years ago in one of the Games Done Quick marathons, somebody did a speed run of Mr. Bones, which is this random like Sega Saturn game where you play as like a skeleton and it has like a jazz soundtrack that I'd like never heard of in my life, and it turned out to be just like a super fun, amazing run with great commentary and all that kind of stuff. So I really recommend checking it out. We've just picked a few Nintendo focused runs that are scheduled for this week, but definitely, like go check it out. So today at really specific times, 12:42 Pacific, there's a Super Mario Galaxy 2 any percent run or any percent race.
Yeah.
Which
and that's PM, by the way, so that's the afternoon.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, Mario Galaxy 2 any percent race on Wednesday at 4:40 a.m. There's these are all going to be Pacific times. There's a Final Fantasy 7 any percent no slots. So I was like, no slots, what is that? There's a character in the game called Ketshi, spelled Kate Sith, but pronounced Ketshi, who has his limit break is a slot machine, and you can manipulate that to do an instant death on whatever enemy. So speedrunners obviously figured out a way to take advantage of that and time it perfectly, but no slots means that you cannot use this cheat with Ketshi.
Oh, got it. And then on Thursday at 12:12 p.m., there's a 100% race of BS Legend of Zelda.
Which, okay, of course, the BS is the Satellaview Super Famicom version of The Legend of Zelda, where I don't know how this works now, because like in the original there was like a live announcer or like actor that was like giving quests and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know how it works either. But yeah, it was a special version of the original Legend of Zelda game that was only for the Satellaview add-on. That was only available in Japan,
right.
Where they're basically broadcasting these games live, and then there was no, no cartridge or anything that goes with it. So yeah, I don't know how it exists.
Why don't we have BS Zelda on our systems right now? We have the internet now.
Ooh, that'd be so fun. Like, if Nintendo was just like, here's a game that you can. I mean, I guess they did this with Mario 35 and people hated it, but you can only play it for like, it's only available at like 2 p.m. I guess they did this with Salmon Run and everybody hated it.
Yeah.
So
never mind. Just do it again. Who cares? Take the L. I want to play the game. And then on Friday at 8:47 a.m., Metroid Prime 1+2 multi-world randomizer co-op. There are a lot of speedrunner buzzwords in there, but it basically means that it reassigns item locations, what doors lead to what places, what elevators lead to what places, and it also randomizes when you get a power-up who it goes to, because it goes to other people who are also playing the game with you at the same time.
Crazy.
It's kind of insanity.
And then Saturday at 9:59 a.m. Pacific, Metroid Dread all bosses glitchless run. It's supposed to be done in like an hour and 40 minutes or something. Just sounds incredible.
Right. So that's like what we've picked here are sort of things that run the gamut of like, here are people who are going to break the game. Here are people who are going to play a super hacked version of the game. And here are people who are just going to play Metroid Dread real fast. Right. So like this is the breadth of exhibition that you'll see as part of AGDQ. So if any of that sounds like fun, go look it up and find something to watch.
Yeah, and again, you can find that schedule and donate at GamesDoneQuick.com. Last week, Game Freak announced that Pocket Card Jockey Ride On is coming to Apple Arcade on January 20th.
Apple Arcade?
Yeah. I mean, we knew that Apple Arcade, they were money-hatting those exclusives.
Yeah, true.
And so, but I never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined that Apple would have, like, zoned in on Pocket Card Jockey.
Freak, yeah. Well, and, like, it's because Game Freak is not, owned by Nintendo. It's not, so, like, but mostly they develop games that appear on Nintendo hardware. And even for like something to appear on phones, like that's not that odd, right? Because there's a lot of Pokemon stuff that's available on phones. But to be part of Apple Arcade is really, really big.
I think all signs point to Tim Cook being a really big Pocket Card Jockey fan on the 3DS.
Sure.
And so when the
opportunity, like it more or less.
So when the opportunity arose, he was like, "We've got to make this an Apple Arcade exclusive."
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, for whatever reason, when the name was leaked or whatever it was from like the Japanese trademark, I
got excited.
Yeah, I just expected that it would be like maybe a mobile game, but not necessarily Apple Arcade exclusive. I
think we were hoping for a Switch,
for sure,
either port or sequel.
Yeah.
And it seems like this is more port than it is sequel, right?
Right.
It kind of looks like all they've really changed is that the racing components of the game are being rendered in 3D instead of it was pretty janky before, actually, just like what it almost appeared to be like paper cutouts of horses like jockeying for position on just like a 2D plane. But so if that is being rendered in 3D, you're still cutting away to play discrete hands of solitaire to make individual turns on the racetrack. But I don't know. Phone is the perfect.
Oh yeah, all
home.
of it makes sense.
It all makes perfect sense.
I think the part that just like threw me for a loop that was that it's an Apple Arcade exclusive.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That throws me for a loop as well. It's also a little bit like Nintendo, lock that down.
I know. What are you doing?
What are you
Nintendo?
doing? You've got of the companies you have great relationships with, Game Freak got to be the top of the list, right? So like just lock that down. Just keep it on Switch. Don't let people play that on phones.
It's just too like I don't know. I think the reason why like it stings a little bit is because I'm not an Apple Arcade subscriber, and I'm like, should I be?
I mean, maybe. Here's the thing: there's that, and also, my game of the year 2022, Shovel Knight Dig, is on Apple Arcade. So like,
so maybe
that's at least 2 good games.
How I hope that it is for a lot of people. Pocket Card Jockey right on is like the tipping point where they're like, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and subscribe to Apple Arcade.
Here's actually what I hope for this whole situation is that subscribers to Apple Arcade are like, oh, okay, they go on, they're like, I'm gonna check out some new games. They discover Pocket Card Jockey and realize that it's one of the greatest games ever made, and just have a wonderful time playing discrete hands of solitaire to help your horse run faster.
Thank you to Virtual Boy in our Discord who brought up that it was releasing on phones.
Yeah, I was not really tracking to it, and most of the other like Nintendo focused news sources that I follow or that we sort of like collate from to put together our news really had it. Like
I'm guessing, because when it was a trademark and people were like, is it coming to Switch?
Right.
It was covered everywhere.
Right.
And then
now
it was
it's
like Apple now when it was Apple Arcade, it was like, well, we can't write about this.
No.
Hey, what's Bandai Namco working on?
Great question.
Something for Nintendo, or so a job posting on their website would have you believe. The listing specifically states that they are looking for developers to work on their games in partnership with Nintendo, and the style of game is listed as 3D action.
Right. So we can start to speculate here. Let's put some pieces together.
Okay.
Right? First of all, with a disclaimer that like video game studios are forever hiring and forever working on stuff that never sees the light of day. This could mean nothing, but we know that Bandai Namco has been pretty active with Nintendo games in the Switch generation. They provided support for both Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and ARMS, and then they just like straight up developed Super Smash Bros. Ultimate under the direction of Masahiro Sakurai.
And weren't they also originally working on Metroid Prime 4 before it got rebooted?
Ooh,
I think they were. I think it was like Bandai Namco Singapore, maybe?
Yeah, interesting. And Pokken Tournament DX is the other game that they just like straight up made. So 3D action, that could be a kind of fighting game, right? What do you think this is, Mark?
Yeah, interesting. I don't know. I'm gonna venture a really boring guess and say it's like Pokken Tournament 2.
Oh, that is boring. I mean, could this be? And they're not really in the remake business. But I was going to say, could it be the Kid Icarus Uprising?
Oh, sure. I mean, they've worked closely with Sakurai in the past.
Yeah. Even though he's like semi-retired at the moment.
But semi means he's got to be working on something.
Yeah. Other than just his YouTube channel. Did you watch his most recent video about Kirby Air Ride?
No, the last one I saw where it was just an ode to his cat.
That guy rules. The Air Ride one is fun. He talks about being the head of like all things Kirby at that time. And like he took over as director of Air Ride when like it wasn't going the way it was supposed to. And then there were two other like I think DS games in development at that time, and the Kirby anime, and he was like in charge of all of it. And it's like, okay, this is just what you do. Like
Yeah.
this at some point these are Sakurai choices, right? Like you're not the put upon game developer. You chose this life.
Right.
But yeah, anyway, it could be that the people that he used to work with on Smash are now like carrying that forward for
maybe.
We don't know.
Maybe. Relevant to our conversation about Nintendo controllers that we had just last Thursday, Nixie, NYXI, has introduced a new Wizard wireless joypad. It's a Joy-Con S controller for Switch that very strongly resembles a GameCube controller.
Yeah, so looks like when it's in, because it has its own like grip, like Joy-Con grip thing, and at that point it mostly looks like a purple Wavebird controller, and of course you can take it off of the grip and just put it on your Switch like Joy-Cons.
Yeah, and so which I feel like when the Switch was revealed, one of the earliest fan renders, was putting, like a GameCube controllers, like half of it on one side of the Switch and half on the other, but nothing like that has ever really revealed itself.
Yeah, well, and that's the GameCube controller is held in high esteem, especially as a sort of like universal game controller. Especially as Nintendo controllers started to get like more specific in the Wii U, and Switch era, that like the GameCube controller is just sort of like right down the middle, right? Like it still has its big weird green button in the middle, but it's sort of a good all around player. So a couple things to note about this controller is that, first of all, the C stick is less of a nub and more of like an actual stick, with a like nice round sort of thumb pad on the top of it. But here's like the big like intriguing kind of selling point of this thing is that they are touting something that they are referring to as the Hal effect joysticks, that they say are going to be impervious to Joy-Con drift, because the components of the stick don't physically touch. It's a magnet that like triggers the positioning, which I don't know, makes me nervous about like if you get in proximity to other magnets, what's going to happen.
Don't take it through an X-ray machine.
Don't take it through an X-ray machine. Make sure to take all the good change out of your pockets before you play with it. But the quote from their website is, quote, "This means that in theory, Hal effect Joy-Cons or joysticks will never develop drift in their lifetime." It's weird that the website says in theory. Has the product been tested? What are we talking about? In theory.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like they're like hedging their bets because infinity's a long time.
Infinity's a really long time.
Yeah.
But it's like ancient philosophers have surmised that possibly drift would never occur on these joysticks.
That's funny.
Yeah, it just it's a weird. I think that in theory is doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
Also, it looks like it has mappable touchpads on the back.
And swappable stick gates, depending on whether you want circle or the octagonal gates for the thumbsticks.
Yeah, I mean, it looks cool.
It looks cool. One thing I do just want to note here is that I saw a lot of outlets reporting on this thing today and like over the weekend, and it's unclear to me why like it's getting positioned. Because I feel like there have been GameCube-esque controllers for Switch that have been available before, so I don't know that it's that unique. I think they either just had a really successful marketing push, or the Hal effect joysticks actually are a big deal, but I don't know which it is.
Yeah, I would say there's a third option, which is that it's like early January and news is slow.
I put it on our news. I mean, like, we got to fill out the show. But is a GameCube like set of Joy-Cons something that interests you,
I
Mark?
in theory, I like it. Like I don't know that I have any practical use for it, but it makes me happy that it exists.
Yeah, I mean, you just ended up getting another set of Joy-Con, right?
Oh yeah, that's
Because
true.
you got the OLED. Are you keeping your existing Switch, or what are you?
So I don't know. I am currently holding on to it. I
Yeah.
haven't done anything with it. It feels kind of like because I didn't want to trade it in before I got my new one
Of
because I wanted
course,
to,
yeah.
and so it just felt like a big
But when's the next time you're going to a
hassle,
GameStop?
right?
Yeah.
And how much could I actually like get for it?
Yeah.
So I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Hey man, you can get $70 off the like PlayStation VR 2 or something.
Yeah, that's right. So then it's only like $600.
Okay, all right. Calm down.
But no, and then I was
It
like,
retails for $5.50.
and then I was like, maybe I'll keep the old one to travel with, so I can just like throw it in a bag and not think about it. But I'm like, well, the whole point of the OLED model is that the screen is nicer. So if it's just plugged in my TV, like who cares?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do with
Maybe
it.
if you ever need like a small cheese board.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. Well, you and Connor talked about this in last week's news episode. The kind of like buggy release of Sports Story that came at the end of December. But now we know that the initial patch to the game, released late last week on January 6th to address hopefully some of the more glaring problems of the initial release.
Yeah, and there are full patch notes available on Sidebar Games' website. But they are so specific, as though they had just gotten like a list of complaints from players and were addressing them one by one, like in specific scenarios. There's even one where they're like, people experience this. It's not a glitch, but you should do it this way. But the one that made me laugh the most, the bullet point is, quote, "The baby tennis match should be less confusing." And hey, I agree.
I really like Golf Story. Am going to
Yes.
pick up Sports Story.
Yes.
But haven't picked it up yet. And am glad to be picking it up after some of these patches come out.
But do you have like a plan in your head of when you're going to tackle it or anything like that, or?
I don't know. I do think that it'll be. I like don't really have like a specific plan. It'll probably be one where I buy now and then maybe not, like play until there's like a little bit of a lull. I have to tell, like, we're really close to Fire Emblem Engage. We're like
So close,
10 days away basically at this point. I am intrigued by it, but a bunch of previews came out recently for Fire Emblem Engage, and they are talking about how it is more of a, I guess it was unclear after Fire Emblem Three Houses, like what direction the next game would take. Would it lean into the more like social aspects in the way that Fire Emblem Three Houses did? Would it return to a more like combat focused game? And from the previews, it sounds like Engage is more of a traditional Fire Emblem,
That's
not
my
really
read on it as
following
well,
the
yeah.
path of Three Houses. And so I liked Three Houses a lot, but it wasn't the combat of the game. I played on like the easiest mode possible, and for the most part, just like auto battled my way through it. And where I spent my time and my effort was in interacting with the characters in the story. And so I think I'm still going to pick up Fire Emblem Engage, but what I'm saying is sports story might be something that I turn to when
Right.
Fire Emblem Engage doesn't really grab me.
Engage.
Yeah, I was dancing
It's
around
tough. Yeah, well, because like I know that I'm gonna go head first into Engage, and I pre-ordered the collector's edition, so like I'm pot committed here. But yeah, I would be very interested to hear about your Sports Story experiences when you get into it.
And finally, we have the results of this weekend's Splatfest. That
we have the results of this weekend's Splatfest
between spicy, sweet, and sour.
It's like Dan Rather.
That's right. Team Sweet ended up winning. Team Sweet ended up winning with a total of 30 points.
Mm-hmm.
And cloud scores were pretty evenly split among the three teams, but Team Sweet was monstrously more popular than the others.
Yeah, this I find the percentage here and just like how many players on each team. Team Sweet wins with 56.84% of players choosing Team Sweet.
And then Team Spicy was next with 27.75%. and Team Sour at 15.41%.
Gotta say, abysmal showing from Team Sour. It's I wonder if just like is the era of the ultra sour food, is that just do we put that to bed? Did that go away with the 1990s?
Mm-hmm.
Kids don't eat Warheads anymore.
That's right. Well, it's burning everybody's mouths.
Yeah, I mean it's a great point. It's too sour.
I love sour things. I was Team Spicy all the way. You know, at the halfway point, things were pretty evenly matched. Like Team Sweet was ahead by a little bit, I think, but in the end, ended up running away with it.
I love that there are those statistics of like at the halfway point, like this is going on.
Yeah, that's really fun.
That's what a fun little like meta narrative they've built into these Splatfests. All right, Mark, let's get out of the news. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MK Mitchell, and the show's at NinCart Society. But there's also our Discord, where you can chat with us anytime or chat with other people who are having a fun time talking about Nintendo. Just email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society
at gmail.com,
and we will send you an invitation. Anthony DeLuca made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com. or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Eller saying, thank you for listening.